So here I am getting ready to, I guess, at least do a little exploring about replacing this door. I've already started removing the molding. You can see the junk on the ground. There's the molding that I've taken off. It was around the edges. But this door is very insecure. It's barely, somebody could push it in so easily or break the glass. So I went to Habitat for Humanity and happened to find a door I kind of liked. Solid wood. It won't be as light because it doesn't have as much window. I might replace that glass with clear glass, but I like the iron over it so that people can't even reach in. I put a doorknob and a deadbolt here, and so I've got to replace. I bought this one because it's already in a frame, so if I'm super lucky I'll just tear out the old frame and stick this frame in. What could be easier? We'll see. So yeah, look at how janky this is. And I can't get those screws to hold anymore because the wood is so split and rotted out there. So I think I could just kick that in really easily, but I won't do that till I'm sure I'm going to do this project today. I've got to kind of explore in here and see. That sounds just like a thin panel, not a thick piece of wood. So I'll do some exploring and find out. Okay, look at this. So when I put a pry bar back here, that whole thing moves. So that whole thing is the door frame. So it's a really wide door frame. I think it was made for a screen door to go here. And then here's the main door frame, which is basically what I've got here. That is equal to that part. And then this. So if I put in the new frame, then I'm going to have to somehow trim this out with pieces. Probably something wide to look somewhat like beams so I can paint it green. We'll see. We'll make it work one way or another. The biggie is I hope it's not too tall, because if it's too tall, I'm going to have to do some major reconstructing. I think I'm going to be just fine with the height. Looks like I got room to spare up there. So if you remember, when I was in France, I couldn't figure out how to undo that door hinge, because the ones we have in America seem to be different than that one. These come out like this. I have to use my knee. So this pin pulls out like that, and then the hinge is free. So once I undo all three of them, I can just pull it apart. That slides down, so it's out now. So I do the same thing at the bottom. Kind of hard to do with one hand. There we go. That one's out. So the door should be kind of swinging apart now. And then the top one. Well, I'll have to turn this off. Okay, all three of them are out. And now that door just falls right off of there like that. So now is the time when I'm going to have to keep moving or my house is going to freeze because it's cold outside. Well, as you can see, there's no stopping now. I've committed to this, so I've got to get it done today. Wow. Oh boy. So this is concrete block, so kind of thinking I'm gonna have to put in some concrete anchors to hook that new door frame in. Something they didn't really do before. Well, maybe, I don't know. That looks like it, but I didn't see any concrete anchors, so I don't know. There was some down here. That's a concrete anchor. You drill a hole and pound those in. Actually, you know what? I don't have a concrete drill either. I didn't prepare very well for this. I need to borrow a concrete drill. So I had to take the door out of the frame. And the frame is about 1 inch or a couple of centimeters too tall, so gonna have to cut it down, cut the door down. Kind of what I was hoping I wouldn't have to do, but that's how it goes. So. Okay, so I had to go to the hardware store and get a little bit of hardware. That little bit right there was $8.50. What a ripoff. That's like 20% of the price I paid for the entire door. But they should have been way cheaper. These are called concrete anchors, and so I'm gonna take this. So this has to be plumb up and down. So I've got to get that straight. And so I got this board that'll take it out just about the right bit. This is called a shim, when you put something in to take up the space. So that'll take up space. That makes that sit just the right distance out from the wall. And then I'll bolt this board, this thing, into the concrete, and I'll put some more shims in that hold it so that the bolts pull it right against those spacers. And then I'll fill in with insulation to keep the cold out in here and then cover it. So the way this works is usually you use it's called this is a masonry bit. It's for cement. Usually you use a hammer drill, which is a drill that while it spins, it also pounds in and out. But I don't have one, and I don't feel like going to borrow one right now. So this stuff's pretty soft. I think it's softer than normal concrete. I think this is going to work fine. So after you drill a hole, you insert this into the hole so it's sitting in the concrete. And then what happens is this screws into it. And as it screws in, it kind of, see how this thing is split? It actually expands that. It makes it open up and just cram and makes it wedged into the concrete so it can't come out. And so that's how it anchors the bolt into the concrete. So that's what I'm going to do now. So see how I've drilled a hole and the anchor goes down into that hole? Now when I start tightening up this big screw, it'll expand that metal anchor, and that anchor will just stick. See, right now it'll move in and out of the concrete, but once that screw goes in and it expands, it won't move anymore. It'll be stuck. That's what we want. We want it to be stuck. So I'm going to go ahead and crank this down now using... Alright, now I've got the frame basically in place. I guess I need to tighten it up here again. I loosened it. So it's kind of set in, so it's snug up against this side. I've got the shims in with the bolts pulling it tight against the shims. And so this side is set. It's good and it's solid. This side, I've got the bolts set, but they're not tightened down, so this will still move in and out. And I want it to do that so that when I hang the door, I can move that in or out to just the right distance against the door, put in shims, and then tighten it against those shims. So it's now time to hang the door. Well, you always have to run into a problem. So I shimmed this down so that this was below the level of the ceiling so the door could swing open. Unfortunately, I don't have a level ceiling. So when the door opens, the ceiling bends down and the door hits the ceiling. So I have to shim this down further. And the pain in the neck about that is that means everything's going to lower a little bit. So I'm going to have to redo all of these. Always got to be something like that, doesn't it? Okay. Alright, I don't know how well this will show up, but I've got the door hung. So it's working pretty nicely. But if you look, when it closes, it's fine up here. But as we go down, the gap gets bigger and bigger. And that's why we're going to use shims. I'm going to put shims in here to bring it out to where it should be. So I'll put some spacers in there and then tighten it up against those spacers. So now I've got to go cut spacers to the right size. Very, very exciting. Very, very exciting, and taking me into dark. Probably looks darker on the camera than it is, but it is pretty dark. Got my outside light on though, and my inside light on. Okay, I'm about ready to call it a night. So I've been at this a long time. So I went and bought a lock set, but it turns out this is an older door, and the handle is not quite set. The hole isn't set quite far back enough this way for the newer lock. So I just went out in the garage and found this old one that fits it, so it'll work. And see, it's latching and everything. So that'll work for the night, and then I'll have to work on finding the right kind of handle. I'll probably just go buy a deadbolt and put a deadbolt in it for now. Leave this handle in for now. And for the night, I guess I'll just jam some rags and stuff in there to keep it from letting quite so much cold air in. So, turning out to be a many-hour project. Okay, next morning. Well, you know, the thing is, when I do a project, it's not always that I've done it before. Usually I just figure I can figure it out, or I more or less know how it's done. I'm not sure if I've ever put in a full door frame before. In any case, I'm running into some issues trying to anchor this to the cement, to the concrete block, and I'm not satisfied with how it's holding in. Plus I noticed I've got the door not in totally straight, and you can see it in the carpet line there. So with most things I do, I'm gonna have to kind of back up and redo some stuff. So the problem with these anchors is that, I don't know if you can see how the anchor's pulling out. They're not expanding enough in this hollow wall. They're not expanding enough, and they're pulling out as I try to tighten it down. So I'm not getting a real, see there's some movement there. So I'm not getting a real good hold. So I'm gonna try a different anchor system. So I'm using what I call the shotgun approach. I bought just I'll blast it with a whole bunch of stuff, and hopefully something will work. So I went to Home Depot and I bought, these are called Tapcon anchors. They're basically just a screw that is for concrete, so that might work, assuming I can get enough grip in that soft block. This is called a sleeve anchor, and it's a thing that, as you screw it, it expands this sleeve, and it doesn't have to rely on being stuck in the wall in order for it to start expanding. And then these are really not made for concrete, but I thought they might work. It's a thing that, well, I'll show you how it works if I decide to try it. Okay, so let's hit it. Alright, so I got the door straight again. That was actually pretty quick and easy. So I'm trying new anchors now. So this is more or less in the position I want it. So I'm going to try this sleeve anchor first. So the way it works is, as I turn that screw, it'll pull this thing in, and as it pulls in, it'll expand the metal around it, which will grab into the concrete. If it's my lucky day. Alright, so I've got to drill a hole, and I think I'm going to do the hole right where I've got that spacer. I'm going to drill right through that spacer into the concrete. So right about here. Right about there. So I've got a 1/4 inch drill bit in, and before, I'm going to go ahead and drill through the wood, but before I go into the concrete, I'm going to make sure I've got this exactly in the position I want it to be. So I'll start just by drilling through the wood. I'll drill where there's already kind of a hole. come through. Now I'm going to straighten that up and drill further into the concrete. I'm going to need 2 hands though, so I'm going to turn this off. Oh yeah, that baby is not going anywhere. That is the ticket. And I got a nice, smooth, whoops, set the screwdriver in the way, a nice, smooth door close and latch. Look at that. Oh yeah. Put a few more of those in and I'm in business. I'm going to do those on both sides. All right. See if I can show you how this works. So I drill a hole. I just drilled one actually through here. Into goes into the concrete. I got a spacer down there so there won't, that anchor will go through the air right there. Now I take this thing and I'm going to pound it through here with a hammer. And pound it into that hole in the concrete. Like that. So now it's going into the concrete and kind of holding, but when I screw it down, that's going to expand inside the concrete and then it won't come out. I'm going to pull it back out though and countersink that just a little because I don't like how that's sticking up there. So I'm going to fix that. Okay, here's a little bit of a close-up of how this sleeve anchor works. So there's a sleeve, this thing, and you can see the end is split, and the end of this has like a wedge shape on it. So when it pulls down into that sleeve, it actually bends. I might even be able to do it with my fingers, maybe not. It bends those things out, and then they grab into the concrete as they bend out. And what causes it to pull into there so hard is this screws onto here. I need another hand for the camera. It screws on. And so as you keep screwing this, it pulls that into the sleeves, splitting those open and grabbing into the concrete. So that seems to be working pretty well for me. I'm going to put in another one. I'm going to take some materials back and I might get a couple more of these. Okay, well, I think I'm done for now. So it's in. Obviously I haven't done the trim or anything, but I've got some insulation around the edges. I need to do insulation up there still. Insulation over here. And I got a rag in that hole just to plug it up until I put in the deadbolt lock. There it is from the outside. Obviously I still have to do the trim on the outside as well. It'll be deep set, which I kind of like. So I'm trying to decide if I'm going to just trim it all the way out with a board, with a thick board, or if possibly I'm thinking about doing wire in there and doing plaster over, kind of a round over, so it looks something like that one. We'll just see how energetic I am. In any case, I'll probably put at least a thin board through here. Well, feels a little more secure now. I think I'm okay with it.